Well, that's what I realized for myself was I wanted that comfort zone that everybody looks for, that pat on the back. They don't want to hear all the bad shit. They want to hear everything that they're doing right. And I realized that's what kept me in this world. That's what kept me in this world of not accomplishing anything. So what I did was I became that big, bad, nasty motherfucker that you don't want to walk into at nighttime. I became the roughest critic in the world on myself. And that's what changed me. I literally saw myself in the mirror. I saw the truth versus saying, my dad did this to me from beating me. Kids in school from calling me nigger did this to me. My life did this to me. My fucked up, broken foundation did this to me. I took that and said, you know what? Well, some people may help this happen, but now I have to own this. No one's gonna come back to save me. No one's gonna come back on this fucking couch and say, hey, it's okay. You're gonna be okay. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna be okay. I had to realize I had to take a stand. I had to make a real stand. And it was painful to look at who I was, what the world and myself created. It created a very lonely, depressed, insecure man that would do anything just to have a friend. And I saw that as very pathetic. When you look at the truth, it becomes very ugly and pathetic. I would call this guy up at almost every night about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and give him an update. I said, hey man, I've lost 25 fucking pounds. Because no one knew what I was doing. I had to have some. So I'm really good at creating an enemy. I'm really good at creating something that I'm against. And I'm also good at, if you ever tell me something that I cannot do, I'm gonna let you know that I'm doing it. Somehow you're gonna fucking know, one way or another, that I'm doing it. It may not be like in your face. I may make sure that I run across the daggone world, so then it's on the news, and you turn the news on and say, how the hell? I want to do something that I'm here. I'm here. So every time I lose like a big significant amount of weight, I call that recruiter up and say, hey man, I'm here. I'm here. And before I knew it, man, this guy became almost like my best friend at that time. Because I started actually changing his life. He started seeing, wow, man, like, I'm glad I took a shot on this guy. And not only did I lose weight, I had to go back and take the ASVAB test again. It was like a watered down SAT a couple more times just to get in the Navy SEAL. So it was a big process. So that 3 months was packed full of like failures, depression, even more. But what I found out in that whole 3 months, I lived a lifetime. In that 3 months, I started realizing if I can flip these insecurities upside down, if I can flip this fear, if I can flip all this shit that made me this depressed, insecure guy, if I can flip it and make it work for me versus against me, I started seeing the power in failure, the power in insecurity, the power in self-doubt. Because I looked at everybody, it may not be true, but that's how I looked at everybody, as being way above me. I thought to myself, if I can be at the lowest part in the world, in the sewer, and be able to overcome all this shit, I started using that as power. And I slowly started passing the guys from Harvard, the guys from MIT, the guys who were from great families and shit. I'm like, oh my God, I'm catching up. I had nothing. So I started flipping it and using it as power.
It can be pretty easy to focus on the battle that's right in front of your face. And when you're doing that, sometimes you can lose track of the long-term goal. But I want to have that long-term goal so embedded in my mind that I never lose sight of it, ever. And those little tasks and projects and short-term goals that you tackle, they need to lead toward that strategic victory, winning the long war. And we get very caught up in instant gratification. We want results now. We want the shortcut to the winner's podium. And sometimes, when we don't get that short-term glory that we want, we lose track of those long-term goals. And you look up in 6 weeks or in 6 months or in 6 years, and you've made no progress. None. You never moved. You might even be further from your goal than you were. Why? Why did you let that happen? It's because you lost sight of that long-term goal. And at some point, after you lose sight of that goal and years have gone by, you think to yourself, maybe I can't. Maybe I can't do it. And so you give up. You let it fade. And you settle. You settle for mediocrity. You settle for average. You settle for, oh well. But no, don't do that. Embed that long-term goal in your mind. Burn it into your soul. Think about it and write about it and talk about it and hang it up on your wall. But most important, do something about it. Do something about it every day. Do something that moves you toward that goal, that keeps the goal alive and in sight and in focus. However small or insignificant that step might seem, take it. Do it. Do that little piece. Make it happen. Because that goal isn't going to achieve itself. It's all on you.
You got to get to the stage. Whatever your stage is, you got to get there. Why? Because there was a gap in professional development, right? There was a gap, right? And what was the gap? The gap is you were listening to people and they were telling you that you need to do X, Y, and Z. But when you looked at those people, not necessarily culture, but when you listened to what they told you, a lot of you couldn't relate. Why? Because they hadn't gone through your experience. Right? So for some of you, your father or mother hadn't even been in your life. And so you're listening to an individual who came from a two-parent background tell you that you need to do X, Y, and Z. And what happened is because they have not lived your experience, they were missing some pieces. Right? You got to hear what I'm telling you. So the reason why my grandma, I'm telling y'all, my grandma could cook so well that when she died, I was pissed because everybody that came to the funeral talked about her food. Right now, I was pissed. I was like, y'all ain't got nothing else to say about her? Like, everybody want to talk about her chicken? Like, for real, y'all, everybody want to talk about her pound cake? Like, what about her? And so when my grandmother passed, what was crazy was she took her recipes with her. And at first, I used to think she was selfish because I'm like, yo, I want some of that chicken, right? But I realized my grandmother was smart, and she realized that if she gave her recipe to somebody, they may try to do what she did, but they wouldn't be able to do it the way she did it because they would be missing a component. You know what I'm talking about? My grandma would not only cook the food, but in the ingredient, and you couldn't write it in, was love. So if you didn't love the people you were cooking for, you could follow it to a T and not be able to produce it. So you had to be a person that was in love in order to take her recipe and do it. And so listen to me very closely. By looking at Tob just get on the stage, he just gave you a sermon without He just gave you a presentation. He just gave you the keys to success. He just told you that he wasn't trying to be a rapper. But that's what he was called to do. Inky just told you that he wasn't trying to do this for a living. He was trying to play football. They stood on stage as examples of what you can do. So I need you to do me a huge favor. Like, I do not need you to come in this joint and be pumped up, motivated, and just inspired. When you leave, I need you to be transformed. And you are in... Because in some area of your life, you need to be transformed. Now, what has to happen is that all of you are going to get the information, but some of you aren't going to do anything with it. Somebody's sitting in this room, just like I sat in the room as a high school dropout. I got my GED. I went to Huntsville, Alabama. I went to Oakwood College. And that man got up and he spoke, and when he spoke, it changed my life. Not because of his words, but because of his words and who I was at the time. I was ready. There were other people sitting in there, I'm telling you. Listen to me, y'all, this is crazy. If you go back to my college in 1989, I was already a year behind. It took me 12 years to get a 4-year degree, and I was definitely not the most likely to succeed. But when you put down the Hall of Famers of the people that went to the school, you got to include me. Listen to me very closely. You got to hear what I'm telling you. I had come from sleeping on the streets in abandoned buildings, eating out of trash cans. I had gone as a high school dropout who got his GED. So we were all in the same room. Some of us did. Some of us did. But the way I took the information, the way I processed the information took me from what, listen to me. I was getting this information as a high school dropout, but I was getting it and I was doing something with it. Other people were getting it and it was like, that wasn't that deep. Or it's deep, but I'll apply it later. I'm telling you that as much as Ignite the Dream is going to ignite your dream, some of y'all, it ain't going to ignite your dream, and there's nothing wrong with the message. It's something wrong with you. And so some of y'all going to walk out of here, I promise you, on everything I love. You're going to walk out of this place, and a year from today, you're going to wake up like Tob and not even believe what happened to your life. There are those of you right now, you at rock bottom. You spent your last dollar to get to this place. Like, You are at a crossroad. And if you take this information and you do something with it, it's going to change your life forever.